you. Okay, let's move over to the United States then for the midterms. Patrick.
Yes, the midterms are November 8th, so that's coming up really quick. And I'm going to say that the results of these elections, they could very well have a significant effect. Some say maybe even a profound effect on U.S. foreign policy, and also to do with big tech censorship. So that's a global issue as well. Let's just take a quick look at how things are shaping up. We told you about Kari Lake and her run in Arizona. It's very significant, in fact. So let's look at the 2022 races. They're tightening up. So Kari Lake was neck and neck with Katie Hobbs, maybe even a little bit behind in some polls last week when we last spoke, and that is completely opened up. So Katie Hobbs is the Secretary of State of Arizona. Kari Lake is the insurgent candidate. She's against mandatory vaccines. She's calling out the pharmaceutical companies for the quote experimental shots. He's saying no way our kids are going to be subject to that. No myocarditis outbreaks among our children's population. So pretty amazing. And the media has basically gone full bore to demonize her, characterize her as this the most dangerous politician in the United States. I've heard some commentators say. So that's pretty amazing. Now, what's also interesting is that the Senate race in Arizona is really coattailing. It seemed to coattail Kari Lake's gubernatorial run here. So Blake Masters is right now a statistical tie. When we say statistical tie, we mean within the margin of error of whatever the polling methodology is. This is the insider advantage poll here, which has been fairly accurate in a number of other races in terms of tracking, along with Real Clear Politics polling average. But look at that, neck and neck with the Democrat incumbent, Mark Kelly. Blake Masters, kind of a Ron Paul libertarian slate that he's running under. He's in his mid 30s, is very young. So it's certainly, he wasn't even in the race. You can see the libertarian candidate, Mark Victor, at 6%. Unfortunately for Republicans, libertarian candidates who are running are going to be pulling mostly Republican votes away. So that would be something that will be a point of argument going forward. There's also 6% undecided in there. Anyway, that's wide open. It's trending towards Blake Masters. You have to remember for the U.S. Senate, currently tied with a tie breaking vote with Kamala Harris, the vice president. One race or two races, tight races around the country, are going to mean the difference between whichever party is going to take control of the Senate. That has huge implications considering what might be coming down the pipeline. We're talking about impeachment hearings against Joe Biden, congressional hearings on Hunter Biden, big tech censorship, even the vaccine issue. Certainly, Anthony Fauci might find himself in front of a congressional hearing as well. So, all of these things are significant going forward. Let's look at another tight race here. Patty Murray in the state of Washington, she's been pretty much a lock, a Democrat lock there. The former soccer mom, she's been in there for a very long time, many decades, in fact. She's being challenged by Tiffany Smiley, another insurgent candidate. These are people that have really come out of nowhere in a lot of these races to challenge what would normally have been safe seats by Democrats. I mean, Washington State is pretty much impregnable electorally. At least it has been for a very, very long time. So again, the Senate is really, really important as to what the legislative trajectory is going to be, whether there's going to be gridlock and things like this. So we'll move on to another interesting race. Now, this is getting a lot of press. This is Pennsylvania's U.S. Senate race. Now, John Fetterman's a Democrat. He's a lieutenant governor. He recently had a stroke about 5 months ago before the primaries, and the party elected to have him keep running even though he had a stroke. He's having visible cognitive difficulties. He required closed captioning for the recent television debate here with Mehmet Oz, otherwise known as Dr. Oz, sort of the medical Donald Trump, if you will, U.S. former TV health TV star, says on the Republican ticket closed up Fetterman's lead. Now they're almost neck and neck after a disastrous TV debate performance by Fetterman. Fetterman, it was embarrassing to a lot of people to see him having trouble talking and finishing sentences and repeating himself. And it was very sad. But then the media is attacking anybody criticizing him as being ableist, if you can believe that. They're saying, "Oh, he's recovering from a stroke." And so it's a crazy discussion we're having. But of course, in the wake of Joe Biden being the template for someone who's cognitively challenged in a powerful office, this seems like normal fare right now in the U.S. It's a very bizarre situation we find ourselves in. So the games are already beginning. Look at this. Now, this is why Pennsylvania may not have election night results and why that's okay, says all of the media outlets. So the Secretary of State, the interim Secretary of State in Pennsylvania, is saying, "Oh, we might not have the votes counted in time." This is basically a rerun of the 2020 election. More than 1 million mail-in ballots have been requested in Pennsylvania, with roughly 5% having been returned so far. An overwhelming majority of voters mail-in ballots are Democrats. So during the last midterms in 2018, roughly 5 million total Pennsylvanians voted. So you can see the percentage there of mail-in ballots. It's massive. So the stout Democratic establishment really possibly speaking through the Secretary of State here, saying, "Whoa, there might be a problem counting the votes. This might go on for days after the actual election." So this is going to cause a huge controversy in America, especially since the Senate race could be a potential tiebreaker here in Pennsylvania. So again, back to the good old days of 2020. Now, this is another important race here in Georgia. Progressives polls show here Raphael Warnock, he's the Democrat Senate seat that took over. He's being challenged by Herschel Walker, former NFL football star. And Walker was way behind in the last couple of weeks. He's now tied, so it's a statistical tie. Stacey Abrams is losing by 10 points to Brian Kemp in the governor's race. So that's really important. Georgia is a massive battleground state. It's a massive swing state. So it's now trending towards the Republicans here. And again, that's another key U.S. Senate race with an outsider, Herschel Walker, coming in. And I just want to point to Herschel Walker there in the lower left-hand corner, being an African American Republican. As you can see, that's pretty much an anomaly in the past. But now we're seeing more and more African American Republicans and Latino candidates who are maybe stepping forward and now becoming embraced by the party. This has caused a massive demographic shift. And let's take a look at what that is right now. This is a new poll from USA Today. 40% of Hispanics, 21% of blacks now backing the Republican Party. So this is threatening the sort of uh, the stranglehold that the Democrats have had by owning all ethnic minority votes traditionally, and in terms of them holding that sort of secure lead, whereby in the swing votes were normally in white or middle class American demographics, but they could always count on a basic monopoly with regards to minority votes. So that's all changed now. And so there's a lot of people scratching their heads. How is that happening? So let's take a look at that. That was a USA Today poll. And how is that happening? We'll go to Breitbart News, John Nolte, who's got a number of colorful reports from the campaign trail, and we'll show you why are Hispanics and African Americans fleeing the Democratic Party for the Republicans. So it's a lot more than just the economy, stupid, using the Bill Clinton quote there. John Nolte says, "What I see is a cultural awakening driven by the Democratic Party's shift to the extreme left and an open rebellion against the Democratic Party driven by Black Americans." And he goes on, "It's also Democrats who want to defund the police and bail and open the prisons. And who do those policies affect the most? Black Americans who live in these failed Democratic run cities." And he goes on. Then there's the Democratic Party's open embrace of the demonic transsexual agenda, largely Christian Black population and Latino, we add, does not want the horrors which the Democrats are pushing there, which are gay porn in schools and the permanent mutilation of their children through puberty blockers, chemical castration, and sex change operations. Now, that might sound hyperbolic to some people, but in fact, this is what Americans are talking about right now, even if it's not being highlighted by a lot of the corporate media. This is actually the conversation that's going on the ground. So the Democrat Party was the party of the working class, says John Nolte. Now it's the party of allowing men to play in women's sports, allowing men to into women's locker rooms, sexualization of children, emptying prisons, opening the border, aborting black babies, closing schools, forced vaccinations, record inflation, and the worst economy since Jimmy Carter was president. And if the Democratic Party loses even 20% of the black vote, which it has, it is doomed. But holding on to the Nazis means losing Hispanic and black voters. So what? So this is on Twitter here. This is Breitbart. So Hispanic voters are done with this lying, corrupt fraud. He's talking about Joe Biden and the Biden administration. According to the latest Quinnipiac poll, the president now just 20% approval rating among his say very similar among other Democrats. So you're looking at people red term elect people or brace themselves to be able to take the results and say, here Elon kind of postulates where a lot of people are at. I put his title as the head of everything because he seems to be the head of everything this week after he's taken over Twitter. But in the past, he says, I voted Democrat because they were mostly the kindest party, but they've become the party of division and hate. So I can no longer support them and will vote Republican. Now, watch their dirty tricks campaign against me unfold. And indeed, they have unfolded. The U.S. federal government has opened an investigation against Elon Musk, partly for his acquisition potential, or no, his actual acquisition of Twitter. So that might be tied up in the courts going forward. But let's just review the results here. We'll look at Nate Silver's 538 here. So this is a pretty fair. He's more, I'd say, a Democrat-leaning pollster. Let's take a look at this in terms of the House of Representatives. A lot of people believe, including him, that the Republicans have a lock to take the House. So that means Nancy Pelosi's political career is over. So the Republicans will take the House by all indications. Now, the U.S. Senate is a different story. So the U.S. Senate is right now a dead heat. It seems that way anyway. So right now, he's giving an 80% chance that the Democrats could take up to 53 seats. That would be plenty to hold a majority in the Senate. But statistically, it's a dead tie. And as we've shown you, a number of these races, like Arizona's Senate race, that were normally, that looked like Mark Kelly, the Democrat, for instance, had a lock, they're trending in the other direction now very rapidly in the run up to November 8th. So there could be a few surprises here. And again, it only takes the Republicans to take back one of those seats to get a majority. They only need one senator in the majority as well, because obviously the vice president is a tie-breaking vote in the Senate, which the Democrats currently have. So that's what's happening in the U.S. elections. So it's going to be very interesting, and hopefully we'll be able to give you an even closer up to the date report next Friday at the same time.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Now,